Am I the arsehole for divorcing my husband over being a stay-at-home dad? Story time. So I married my husband Steve around 5 years ago. We've been dating since high school and we were the definition of like high school sweethearts. One of the things that most attracted me to him was how ambitious and driven he was, and his work ethic was just 10 out of 10. 3 years into our marriage, we had our first baby. We had decided that we would send our baby to daycare after 6 months. But when those 6 months were up, Steve just refused to go back to work. His argument was that if I picked up more shifts, we'd be able to afford a single income household. And that if he stayed home and looked after the baby, he'd be saving us money anyway because we wouldn't have to pay for daycare. And he said it would be better for the child as well because he'd have a parent at home with him all the time. I was not up for this at all. I really wanted to send our little one to daycare for so many reasons. It's good for their social skills, they learn a lot. Not gonna lie, if it was just me working, that would include me picking up a load more shifts. And in turn, I wouldn't get to spend as much time with the baby. Came to the idea that if he was scared of daycare, we could work in different shifts and tag team who was going to stay at home with the baby. He just outright refused that. I was like, that doesn't really work for me. His argument was that he doesn't want to be like the normal dad and he doesn't want to be the one to go to work. He wants to be the primary caregiver and stay at home all the time. One day, I come home from work and Steve was supposed to be at work late that night. I come home and I find him sitting on the sofa with the baby. And I was like, oh, did you get let off work early today? Or he'd quit his job without telling me, and then had the audacity to sit me down in front of a chart. The chart depicted how he wanted me to take care of cooking and cleaning on the weekdays whilst he took care of the baby, and then on the weekends I would take care of the baby because stay-at-home dads deserve to have time off as well. We did this for a few months, right? And the whole dynamic was so deeply upsetting to me. I was absolutely exhausted all the time from working these extra hours, and this meant that I wasn't having the quality time that I really wanted with the baby. When I was 100% sure that he wasn't going to make any different compromise, I just straight up filed for divorce. So they gave us 50-50 custody and I moved straight back in with my parents. My parents are absolutely amazing. They help watch the kids so I can work. My husband is now living paycheck to paycheck. He's really struggling. So we offered to let my mum hold the baby whilst he was at work, but because of how fuming he was, he refused that and has enrolled the child in daycare anyway, which is now costing him even more money. He then asked me to pay for the daycare, and I was like, no, because you can just happily leave the baby with my parents. So of course, now my ex and his friends are calling me the arsehole here for divorcing him over such a small issue. Now that I'm not providing any support to him, they're even more mad. So what do you think? Am I the arsehole here? My stepsister is telling everybody that my boyfriend got her pregnant. Story time. So I met my boyfriend Steve 3.5 years ago and we hit it off straight away. Everything was going really well until I introduced him to my family. In my family, there is my mum, my stepdad, and my stepsister, who we'll call Amy. Me and Amy get on well, we're just not best friends. She's kind of like an intense party girl situation. So when I introduced him to the family, we actually learned that Amy and Steve used to date. Isn't that just so fun? The relationship only lasted a few months and Steve said that they broke up because she cheated on him. She got with another guy on a night out. So whilst we're at this family event, Amy gets really wound up and is telling me that I need to break up with Steve because it's weird. She called Steve her sloppy seconds. She also tried to get our parents to force us to break up as well. At this point, it had been about 4 or 5 years since they dated, so it really wasn't that deep. And I didn't even know Amy when she was dating Steve. But I ended up getting pretty upset because my family jumped on the bandwagon and started telling us that we actually should break up. So a few years have gone by and every single family event now, me and Steve end up having to leave because Amy makes it weird. She'd say how I stole her boyfriend and she would sell that narrative to literally anyone new that came into the family. It was very obvious that she was just jealous. But I really like Steve, so we ignored it. So I recently had a conversation with my mum about how I was thinking that Steve was going to propose. Because I'm not going to lie, he's not being exactly subtle with it. And at this point, Amy walks into the room because she just recently moved back in with my parents. She starts asking a bunch of really intrusive questions about our relationship. Amy is now 4 months pregnant. She had said that the father was some deadbeat guy who she'd got with on a one-night stand. And he now wants nothing to do with her. So until like a week ago, I'd actually been really excited for Amy. I'd been taking her to her appointments, helping out what she needed. My stepdad sent me this long ass text about how I can't marry Steve because he is the real father of Amy's child. I was absolutely heartbroken at this point. So I spoke to Steve and he was like, this bitch is lying. He said there is absolutely no way that is possible. Steve even said he'd prove it with a paternity test. I messaged Amy and I was asking for more details about when they had slept together. And she was like, it's happened a few times now, you know, just here and there. She was giving me dates and times, but they always seem to change. She'd also told the doctor completely different information. Remember, I had been at her doctor's appointments. She also said one of the times that they'd been together was when we were on holiday in New York. So now I'm getting my family saying that I need to break up with Steve because I can't be with the child's dad, and it wouldn't be right for me to be with the child's dad when the mother is single, so Steve and Amy should get back together so they can parent the child. Like, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea, yeah. So what do you think? Should I break up with Steve so that they can be together?
Am I the asshole for telling my brother he cannot stay with me over Christmas if he brings his prosthetic leg? My younger brother has a prosthetic leg. I think it is creepy as fuck, and I have no idea where he got it. I'm reasonably certain that it is something I would rather not know. To be clear here, my brother has 2 perfectly healthy legs still attached to his body. He just has this thing he takes with him everywhere. I don't know why. I don't want to know. Before you ask, yeah, it is probably a mental health thing. He wanted to stay with me rather than our parents while he is home for the holidays. I said he was welcome to stay so long as he doesn't bring that thing to my house. He said it wasn't a big deal and that he would leave it in his luggage. I agreed on the condition that if I saw it outside of his luggage in my home, then I had the right to destroy it. He backtracked on staying with me and is at our parents' house, where he is miserable. They still treat him like a little boy instead of a guy who is almost 30. He called me again after supper and asked to please stay with me. I said he could, so long as we together took his thing and put it in a storage unit until he leaves. I get the key. He won't do it. He says that I'm being a bitch for not letting him stay with me. I think he needs to get therapy or medication or both, or a girlfriend, dog, cat, hamster, something, just not a goddamn prosthetic leg. Am I the asshole?
I don't even know how to accept the information that just came into my brain.
It's just a little blankie, basically.
There's so many things to unpack.
It's just a little security blankie.
This man he couldn't not have it to the point where he backtracked and said, you know what? I'm staying with mom and dad. I will put myself through the misery rather than not keep my leg. That's crazy.
Well, and like a leg is it's not small likely, unless it's like a baby, like a toddler prosthetic
what part
leg.
of the leg is being kept?
So I think
lower.
I think someone does ask. OP does respond to some comments from people. One is, I'm a prosthetist and I have to ask, what does this leg even look like? Below knee or above knee? Does it also have pylon bare, or is there a foam covering so that it sort of looks like a leg? Is there a foot shell on it, or is the foot component just sort of hanging out? The reason I'm asking is because A, prosthetic anything is mind-bogglingly expensive, and B, you can't just have a prosthetic leg if you have 2 perfectly healthy legs.
Right.
You literally need a stump to make one that's specifically yours. Did your brother receive it from someone? Did he steal it? But OP goes, it looks like a carbon fiber cup with a steel knee and lower leg and foot, which based on what I know about those, like that's an expensive unit.
Yeah. My question is, what is he doing with it? What could he possibly do with it that he is required to have it on his person at all times?
Well, someone does ask, is it just there to look at, or is there cuddling involved? Is he bringing it with him to places to have it like function? And OP goes, what he does with it is on the list of stuff I do not want to know.
Okay.
I would have to know. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, is it weird? Yeah, but like, I mean, he's likely not jerking off to it.
No, you don't know that. We're talking about a man close to his 30s with a prosthetic leg.
That is
I feel
true.
like if he's jacking off to it, that would be the least of my worries. Like, I want to know what's really going on.
So we do have an update on this one.
What? I have to know.
I didn't realize how much attention this was going to get. Enough that someone informed the woman my brother stole it from. And she was able to figure out what happened. She called the cops and he got arrested. I guess he was sort of trying to do the thing where he could be the hero that tracked down her leg. Please don't ask me what the fuck was going through his head. The leg was expensive enough that he is facing real criminal charges. That's all.
That's felonious behavior right there.
That's a felony.
Yeah, after $1,000, I mean, depending on the state. Yeah.
That was a really impressive word.
What?
Felonious.
Yeah.
I've literally never heard that word.
Really?
Never.
The prefixes of felony, felonious, felon.
Wow. That's a big word for Elmo. Oh my God, you learn something new every day.
You do.
Felonious. You just used it so smooth. Like I could tell you've used it before.
Yeah, I like to read.
I pretended to be a recruiter to troll a former workplace bully.
That seems like a lot of work.
Is that a lot of energy for somebody who you don't like and doesn't like you? A few months ago, I landed a job as a customer service rep at a company, let's call it ABC company, and there was this colleague, let's call her Karen. Even though we were on the same level, she liked to think of herself as my boss and would constantly micromanage me, making up stupid rules and force me to follow them, etc. One day, I finally couldn't stand her and called her out on her behavior. She got upset and went to complain to the manager, who then stepped in to resolve the conflict. I could tell the manager was on her side, but pretended to act fair and unbiased. Ever since this incident, Karen would occasionally throw shade at me, being passive aggressive at me, and pass work that was supposed to be hers to me. Basically, she'd do all these little things just to annoy me and make my working days unpleasant. Despite me trying to ignore her, she keeps coming at me because she knew her friends and the management would side with her. And then one day, she supposedly found an excuse to cause another huge drama, and the manager sided with her again. I couldn't take it anymore, and I quit on the spot. After about 2 weeks, I was still pretty angry about how she ruined my job. I decided to at least do something to take revenge. In where I live, recruiters and HR would often approach job applicants or individuals open to working via WhatsApp. And because based on Karen's LinkedIn profile showing she's open to work and that I have her phone number, I decided to approach her by pretending to be a recruiter using a second phone number that I have. I approached Karen with this fake identity and told her that we are hiring customer service rep position. I made up a job description that was similar to her current job, but with slightly better compensation and benefits. Once she said she was interested, I then gave her a job application form and some customer service writing test that I created to make it more believable. Also, with her job application form, I now have more of her personal information that I might be able to use in the future. After that, I scheduled an online interview with her for the day after tomorrow. When the day of the interview arrived, I texted her about an hour before the interview saying that upon a background check, we found that she had been engaging in workplace bullying and harassment, so we are not moving forward with her application. Obviously, she was baffled and went, "What?" I didn't reply. She then said, "This is nonsense. I'm going to check with them." Again, I didn't reply because she's the type of person where the more you talk to her, the more she's going to come back at you. She likes arguing, and the best way to annoy her is to ignore her so that she doesn't have a channel to vent. And I could already tell she was fuming. Whether she asked her manager or not, that's still a win for me. If she asked, then her manager will know she's thinking about resigning, which will create an awkward situation. And if she doesn't ask, then she's going to feel embarrassed about that someone out there knows of her toxic behavior and that she has no way to defend herself. Initially, I wanted to make this pro-revenge by taking it a step further by actually interviewing her and then offering her this fake job, making her resign from her current job.
My God.
And finally telling her that we are rescinding the offer because of the background check. But then I thought it would be quite hard to find someone else to interview her since she's recognized my voice. Also, I was worrying that falsifying an offer letter would put me at risk of a lawsuit. So ultimately, I decided to just take the small victory with a fake background check.
I stayed with my cheating husband for 10 years for that check. My ex-husband and I had been married for 10 years. He was the only child of an elderly couple. I have taken care of his mother for my entire marriage since she needed a caretaker. 5 years ago, I found out he was cheating. We had signed a prenup that said that we would leave with the assets we had come into the marriage with. I didn't have a full-time job because I had to take care of his mother. I didn't get a salary for my caretaking, but I spent my entire marriage taking care of her and her various health issues. It didn't have a clause against cheating. I spoke to a couple of lawyers and they said that even if the prenup is thrown out, which it may or may not be depending on the judge, my husband has an inheritance from his father and can afford to bleed me dry in court. Update 1. However, the prenup had a 10-year clause. I stayed for another 5 years. Some people chose to stay and reconcile. I chose to stay and make sure I don't get screwed over. I filed for divorce after 10 years of marriage and my husband was blindsided. The assets were split down the middle and I was essentially compensated for the caretaking that I did. He is calling me cruel and calculating for what I did. He is also scrambling because there is no one left to care for his ailing mother. I told him to use his inheritance to actually buy her a caretaker that she can't take advantage of. I have a boyfriend and I'm really happy with my life, but I still get messages from my ex-husband blaming me. Am I the a-hole?